For more, I'm joined now in the studio by our international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert. Hi, Doug.
Hi there, Axie.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly is the War Powers Act?
I will answer that, but first I have to just do a little bit of the preface. Look, it's complicated, and you just got to know this question, this squabble over who has the authority to go to war, Congress or the president, has been going out tug of war for generations in America. And the reason there's confusion is because the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, basically grants the authority to two separate branches of government, both the lawmakers and the chief executive, the presidency. So Article 1 of the Constitution, that's the one that established Congress. And it says that Congress, and this is a quote, shall have the power to declare war. But then there's this Article 2 of the Constitution, which creates the presidency, right? Follow me here. And it basically says, but the commander-in-chief, it makes the chief executive the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy. So in other words, the military reports to the president, to the chief executive. And here's where else the Constitution sort of gets into the fray. It says that ultimately Congress approves and disapproves of military funding. So Congress controls the purse strings. It's given constitutional authority and responsibility to actually declare war formally, but the president's the commander-in-chief. Herein lies the glitch and the catch. And over the years, it has gone back and forth. I will note this, okay? Congress officially has not declared an official state of war since World War II. And in all of American history, until then, Congress has declared war against 11 nations in 5 separate wars, but nothing since World War II. So you could see that the War Powers Resolution, which stemmed from the Constitution, it came about because of this ambiguity here. Richard Nixon, in the 1970s, Congress was really frustrated that he kept deploying U.S. troops across Southeast Asia. They wanted to somehow hammer down and put more guardrails on the presidency. So they passed what was called the War Powers Act, 1973. That was the act incited by this War Powers Resolution that was just rejected. And what it does is very specific. It adds a few guardrails. It basically says a U.S. president cannot take U.S. forces into hostile military actions unless, and then there are all the dots, there's a declaration of war from the president. We saw the problem in that report, right? They're not recognizing that it was a war. At least they weren't in the beginning. There has to be a specific statutory authorization, which is a big deal. And there has to be a national emergency created by an attack on the United States. And you could see where the War Powers Resolution can become very controversial when you have two very partisan and very bitterly divided Congress debating it. Like you said, it failed. Trump can continue to call the shots in this war.
So, as you just said, it failed. Democrats lost this vote. Why did they support this move?
Well, the Democrats, the reason they invoked War Power Resolution and wanted basically to force Donald Trump to halt any further military action until and unless he has specific authorization from Congress. The reason they want that is they said that this is a completely illegal, unconstitutional war without any clear objective. And Democrat after Democrat essentially echoed the same message. The Democrats essentially said that the case had not been made that the president had needed to act unilaterally in this case. That's where this imminent threat terminology comes in. So they're essentially saying in American football there's a thing, an end run. An end run's where you run around the offense, and it's basically they said he was essentially doing an end run around the U.S. Constitution. He was skirting the Constitution. It's a difficult argument, right? Whether you think that this president was acting illegally, Donald Trump, and not just him, but many presidents, including starting Ronald Reagan and earlier, presidents have tended to claim broad authority to declare war. This is an ongoing debate, but Donald Trump has done it on many occasions in a very short time, most recently with Venezuela, even in threatening military action against Greenland. He's claimed broad and almost unlimited authority, seeing himself as the arbiter, the ultimate arbiter on when to go to war and how long to wage that war. No one is going to be able to say no to Donald Trump on that issue.
What then, Doug, about the Republicans? What were their arguments here?
Yeah, basically a pretty straightforward one. They were saying that that Donald Trump was absolutely within his legal authority, as they see it, to use force in a case where, as they said, Iran posed a threat to the United States. Remember, I cited that the imminent threat, the threat of an attack, an emergency, a situation against the U.S. But then they sort of diluted their case, perhaps unwittingly, by saying that Iran has posed an imminent threat, not just for, the past few days or weeks, but for years, perhaps decades. By definition, imminent means now, about to happen. An imminent threat cannot, by definition, last for decades. So some are arguing that they diluted their own argument in making it. But they were saying that right now, if they were to approve this War Powers resolution, they would jeopardize American service members who are right now putting their lives at risk already in a war on the front lines. They didn't want to tie the hands of the U.S. Service members. They didn't want to tie the hands of Donald Trump in waging the war as effectively as he could to uphold and protect American military personnel at a very dangerous moment. So you could see there's no daylight between these two sides right now, and it doesn't seem like they're about to bridge their differences on this particular issue anytime soon.